So I would say I'm a music fan and a movie fan. I think I started out in life. Bear in mind I'm a child of the 70s, right? So I saw Star Wars at the age of 7 when it came out at the cinema, and I think it left an indelible mark on my life, which kind of many years later, very fortunately for me, would kind of see me kind of reach the apex point of that slight obsession when I went to Skywalker Ranch for the first time and sat in the same room as George Lucas, which still freaks me out to this day. But anyway, so yeah, film 100%, but equally speaking, the 70s was a pretty strong scene for music, and I discovered the bug early. So I was buying records with my friends. Again, it seems early, but true, at age sort of 8, 9, listening to stuff that if my mum had known what I was listening to, she wouldn't necessarily have been that happy with, but nonetheless, and it's kind of stuck with me ever since. So I'm definitely a music fan, I'm definitely a movie fan, and I'm probably definitely guilty of spending too much money on both of them.
I grew up primarily probably in a movie household. I think, I always remember the years of sitting with my father watching films at Christmas, every opportunity. And I think as I grew, I took my own separate path and going down a music route. When I hit 15, I think I was eager to get my first separate hi-fi system. And I think that's what really kicked off my love affair with audio, hi-fi. And I've sort of really over the years, I've intertangled the two things and really have a love for both. I think I'd really be hard pressed to say which would I favour of one or the other. I think they both have their own, strong pulls for me in their own separate ways.
Well, first and foremost, look, the biggest single frustration that every consumer we read about when watching regular TV experiences is lack of clarity. It's lack of intelligibility. I think the biggest frustration facing the modern TV consumer is that experience of not being able to understand what's going on. So, first and foremost, what you'll get by having decent drive units in good locations is the ability to understand what's being said clearly, pick up on all those little micro details and those nuances that are also there within the mix that often get obscured. But most importantly, a voice sounds like a voice, and it tracks directly to where it should be on the screen, so you're getting an experience that reflects clearly what the artist and the mixing engineers originally intended you to experience, but which sadly a great many modern regular TV sets don't deliver upon.
In my job, so I've in the last 5 years, I've headed up the engineering team within Bowers Wilkins, working on our partnership activities. So in the early days when Philips, TPV as we know them, but Philips TV approach us and say, we've got this idea, we would like you to collaborate with us. So my responsibility under those circumstances is to review those proposals, understand what the scale of the projects are, understand what the ambition that we want to do. So almost, we have to be true to the brand. We have to deliver performance that actually warrants the use of a Bowers Wilkins brand. We totally get, and I think in a team where you're working on partnerships where we aren't dealing with studio level loudspeakers, you have to try and understand how can we take elements of those kinds of systems and actually roll that into a partnership where you're working with constrained form factors, space, size. So I have to work out what technologies can we utilize from our portfolio that make sense, that add to the experience that we're trying to deliver. How do we engineer that product to deliver that sound? We work on all elements as a team. I say it's never an individual job. We're very much a team full of very talented mechanical engineers, acoustic engineers that can actually work on all elements of the mechanical design, the acoustic design. Then we collaborate with those internal teams of our partners, and my job is really to sort of help coordinate all of that to our bigger end goal, which is to say we then tune a system that says Bowers Wilkins, and my responsibility along with our chief engineer is to really define that sound direction. How do we make someone listening to this product not just have an obvious visual appearance of it being a Bowers Wilkins system or collaboration, but also if they just heard it, you would know straight away that this is very distinctly a Bowers Wilkins project. So yeah, my job is along the lines of ensuring we can deliver that for the brand, and we are happy, and it achieves the necessary goals, and the user is happy with that product. It delivers the expected performance, and a lot of our work. One of the key things I always want to do. I love to live with what we do. We spend so long. Every sound mode within a TV. Of which there's numerous. With the team, we're responsible for delivering all of those sound modes. And we spend a long time over each one creating what it should be, discussing with our partners, Philips, that they're happy with how it sounds, and ultimately how we can deliver the effect.
It's a really interesting question how partnerships start in general, I think, and particularly the partnership with Philips. I mean, we have a very experienced head of our partnerships team who at various different times in his career has also led our product strategy team and done an awful lot of work kind of defining who we are. And he's always said that our partners are people that we choose to work with. We often say no. In fact, we more often say no than we say yes when it comes to partnerships. So all of our partnerships across all the different spaces that we work in, including automotive as well, are very, what I call symbiotic. You have to kind of get to know each other and kind of get to understand each other, and hopefully enjoy each other's company, if that doesn't sound too weird, but I think it is relevant, alongside delivering products to the market. So in this particular case, when they came to us, they were open-minded enough to start listening. We had very specific feedback very early on about what we thought was required in order to deliver what we regarded as the appropriate level of sound performance. And of course, a lot of that, happily for us, was informed by the experiences that we'd already had working in the automotive space. So what I mean by that, fellas, if you talk about putting decent audio into a car's very space constrained, surprisingly, particularly in things like doors. So you learn very quickly certain of the key requirements that make a difference. And in particular, you also learn very quickly about the value of things like placement. Not that we didn't kind of understand that already, but it becomes even more apparent when you're working in a car. So working in the TV space, you translate a lot of that knowledge across, and you're basically saying right from the start, look, much as we would like to help you, we are not going to work with you if you insist on, for example, having speakers on the bottom of the panel or the back of the panel, because that's not what we don't think we can meaningfully make a difference. We think the only way we can meaningfully make a difference is putting speakers where we think they should go, and where we think as a result we can get the best possible outcomes. And over time, over the course of the generations, you can see that evolving, right? I mean, if you go back to the first generation product, the OLED+903, that was to some extent in flight already from an industrial design, mechanical design point of view, when we started working with the guys at Philips TV. So there was a degree of working within spaces and constraints and volumes that were already defined. If you look at the more recent products, you can see all the way through there's been a lot more of, I'd say, a two-way dialogue and a collective working towards an outcome. And the products that we produce today, I think, reflect that and deliver commensurately higher levels of performance as a result.
So 907 for us is definitely the real successor of 903. So 903 was the first system that Philips and TPV came to us and said, look, we have an idea, we want to collaborate. This is what we're proposing. At the point they came to us, so much of this design was already in place. The industrial design, the mechanical design, a lot of the groundwork had been laid. So we're coming on board at a project where we get shown something, but with us doing what we do and the fact we want to chase that perfection and really push the boundaries of saying, well, yeah, this is great. How can we make it better? So we really took 903 as a bit of I suppose for us, really, it's a starting point. It was a starting project, and between 903 and 907, we've done, really 934, 935, 936, and each generation of TV, we just gained that extra knowledge of what to do, how to use it. Now, the question of when speakers are then placed back on board the TV or integrated audio, as we like to refer to it, it brings up a whole nother challenge. 903 we worked somewhat constrained with to what extent we could go, and ultimately you learn of the problems, and we just want to improve on it. You know, that simple engineering philosophy of what went wrong last time, how were there problems, where can we improve, and a lot of that learning has gone into 907. So fundamentally, you know, the primary issue being you're putting speakers that are developing quite a lot of energy onto a panel which inherently is not, you know, designed to be structurally rigid. Well, from our perspective, if you can't change the panel, well, we have to change the coupling between the speakers and the panel. So a lot of work has gone on how we actually isolate these. So primarily the woofer enclosure on the rear of the TV. We've worked on optimizing the decoupling point, so the actual mounts that fit the TV, to ensure the decoupling frequency is as low as it can be, to really separate that interaction and any unwanted noise, rattles, vibration, which ultimately are just going to color the sound. Whether or not you hear them as distinct noise, there will be an underlying issue of coloration to sound. So however they're perceived by that user, it can come or manifest in very different ways. So doing that was a real primary activity of 907 from our perspective, that we want to keep pushing the bass extension, the bass performance, and the only way we were ever going to be able to deliver that was really working on a method of separating or isolating that enclosure. So that was one of the key areas, but also the left, centre, right, which the 907 has now as a forward-firing driver complement. The original 903 was just a left-right, because in those days, again, these things have sort of been predefined by us, and we always feel like we did a great job of what we had to work with at the time. Now, you know, the learning since then and the subsequent models in between really emphasise that point of having that dedicated centre channel. You know, there's, you know, like a home cinema system, you know, you always want discrete channels. You never want multiple units trying to, you know, overload or do multiple tasks. So, you know, for us, having that dedicated center to really lift and improve dialogue intelligibility was another key or paramount, you know, configuration we wanted to drive on this system. And along with that, you know, there's been the learning and the changes with the rest of the system on board, the Dolby processing that also sits. We utilize the effects of those systems, you know, on top of the actual transducer development we carry out, much like our core speakers. You know, we thrive to, you know, have low distortion units and, you know, optimizing for the specific frequency bands they're working in, and so much of that is how we trickle down our main core loudspeaker technology into these partnerships. You know, there's a very different, I suppose, constraint from a budgetary perspective, that, you know, we can't be putting things like Diamond. We would love to, it's just, unfortunately, it's just not possible. But the learning and the understanding of why we use that in our core speakers is very critical of our approach when we come to these kind of products, and how we can deliver similar performance but at a more cost-effective point for the consumer, so you gain the benefits. Otherwise, the TVs would simply, you know, be very unaffordable, I think, for many.
With OLED+937, we have a 77-inch panel for the first time. So one of the initial questions facing the team was, how do you produce something that's capable of producing a commensurate scale of sound to cope with a 77-inch panel, and still sound like something that's meaningfully Bowers & Wilkins? So the big change that you'll find from a configuration point of view, OLED+937 to 936, is that 937 adds side-firing rear channels. So effectively it's a 5.1.2 enclosure as opposed to a 3.1.2 enclosure, which is what we've done previously. So the elongated enclosure has two additional 45mm drive units at either end. They're positioned on the angled faces. They're the same configuration, the somewhat steeper sort of drive unit profile that you find in the Atmos drive units firing upwards. And the intent is for them to use first reflection. So basically they're mounted on the side of the system. You've got adjustable gain, not only for the Atmos units, but also for them. So if you want to, you can then try and use first reflection to try and create more of a wraparound, more of an engaging, embracing sound than you would have achieved last year with even something as good as OLED+936. So that's the plan. And the reasoning's that it's basically, you know, particularly if you're talking about a product that now comes in two sizes, 65 or 77, you need to make sure that what you're experiencing from an audio point of view matches up to what you're seeing from a visual point of view. So that's the first primary driver. But the second thing, I think, just reflects the fact that this is what customers are watching. This is what customers are expecting. I mean, there's so much stuff now in different ways in some form of 3D immersion that for us to not A, address it, and B, seek to make the most of it feels almost a bit of a waste, really. So that's the plan.
We as a company, we work on refinements. We chase the detail in all of the components we work with. So really on every project, and at the beginning, the first thing we do really as an engineering team is say, look, we've done the 936, how do we take that platform? We know at the time, and with it being such a quick succession, these are 12-month projects. Here's our platform. We know what went well. Where can we look at improving, and how do we keep stepping this on? So we would very much go through each element of that system and work with our engineering partners at Philips TV to really say, these are things we think we can work on. These are things we can improve. So examples such as the mechanical design, when we start adding additional features and we start widening the bar to incorporate side firers, you then have to start questioning, well, this, in addition to it being a speaker enclosure, it is also the support structure of the TV. This then also, we are increasing the length. We're then impacting the structural integrity and rigidity of that bar, and you have to start thinking more about, how will that then also impact the sound? A lot of our core speakers, a lot of the work and huge amounts of simulation and engineering work go on, the structural rigidity, the bracing of these enclosures. So, you very much start there and look at what will the effect be to that. How can we minimize it? What materials are we using? What design methodology do we take in and we start applying, within each of the enclosures? And in addition to that is then also these extra parts and elements, the part they radiate through. You might notice that the end caps used on a 937 has a very similar grill mesh design to the tweeter, which has subsequently come from our flagship 800 series speaker range. Now, that spent many years of design work to get the optimal transmission for the high frequency, and we've also then now trickled this down into the TVs, and we apply it to the end caps for the surround content as well to enable us to have a grill which firstly looks good from a design perspective and also performs well from an acoustic perspective. And then we start looking with TPV and Philips, the Kravdrak partner. We say to them, we have this cloth, we work with this, how can we keep improving the acoustic properties of this cloth? Because in our ideal world, we would have it all exposed and bare, and you would just have the loudspeaker or the transducers firing directly at the user. In reality, you couldn't possibly do that as you would with a traditional speaker. There's different considerations that need to be taken into account. So we push back all the time to say, how can we improve this cloth? We want to work with that design team and really, you keep driving things forward all the time.
Trying to maintain a broad scale of sound and at the same time preserving quality, I think, is the heart of everything that Bowers Wilkins does, whether it's the approach that's adopted to the TV systems or the automotive audio systems, or indeed to the high fidelity systems, the hi-fi systems at home. So big's easy, good's a lot harder. So we're not chasing output per se, we're not chasing an in-room given frequency response. It's not about it has to achieve this in this space. It's about trying to deliver something where the elements of audio that we expect track and place within the sound field as we would expect them to sound and feel as realistic and as believable as we would hope that they could be. If what your expectation is a system that's going to rattle the fillings from your teeth, you're not thinking about a TV here, you're thinking about a traditional 5.1 or 7.1 speaker system based on full range loudspeakers. And clearly any TV audio system, even one as well engineered as this one, isn't going to equate to that. What it is going to do, though, is produce what we think is something that's accurate and meaningful and clear, realistic, aligns correctly to what you're experiencing and seeing on the screen, and immerses you and kind of encapsulates. So the building blocks that the team works with are based on proven, known quantities and approaches. We don't suddenly flip and move to a different approach in, for example, TV audio relative to how we approach things in traditional passive loudspeaker. So, for example, the high frequency, okay, it's a different type of diaphragm, but it's pistonic. How it behaves is the same. It's a different material, it's titanium, but nonetheless the functional work that goes into it is the same, principle, point of view. It's decoupled within the assembly, depending on the model. Again, using principles that are known. We use tweeter on top, again, using principles that are known. So there are some new things to discover, things that we hadn't previously done in passive loudspeaker, like the Atmos drive units, for example. But I guess it's proven principles, known philosophies, adapted and scaled correctly to the challenge, and then working on the methodology that we've always worked on, which is, does it sound as realistic as possible? Like I say, we don't start with SPL or you know, frequency response in a room. It's when I'm watching it, do I feel like I'm watching something that I should be, you know, feeling like it's real, feeling like it's believable?
Primarily on a 937, when you know the reason we have multiple modes is because we feel that they're distinctly different enough that warrant their own modes. Otherwise, we don't think they would be there. Everything that's there is there for a reason. So the dedicated music mode, we actually change the configuration back to a 2-channel playback. If you give it 2-channel content, it will play 2-channel content. We feel that is the purest way to deliver that content rather than try and do it upmix. There is the ability to choose other modes where it starts doing an upmixing effect through the Dolby processing, but primarily we would say 2-channel works with 2-channel, and that's where we try and work with. And us as a brand, Bowers and Wilkins, is where we're most familiar, and how we try and deliver that. I suppose some may say distinct, but for us is the sonic characterization we're trying to achieve from the brand, and have that instant recognizability for people that it's a Bowers product, and for us to do that, we need a separate music mode. I certainly feel when we create the music mode, we can sort of use it as a bit of a template. But I suppose when reality being, you start bringing in extra channels of content. So if you go to entertainment mode on the 937, which we gear and we recommend for film playback and movie content, you bring in the center channel, you bring in all the effects channel to really maximize that cinematic effect, along with the great picture and the ambilight and that general impression of immersion that it delivers you. So you really focus on slightly different things. You want a bit of excitement. You want a bit of the whiz bang effect of the film, and we always feel that you couldn't put onto music. Hence why we'd have 2, because it really detracts away from the true essence of sound reproduction from a music perspective. So from a film playback, you want that excitement. You want a bit more bottom end rumble, a bit more whiz bang. If action scenes, and it really draws you in, and also primarily the extra channel in the center, bringing you that direct and distinct, clear dialogue and intelligibility. So you can hear and you can place everything that's going on the screen is critical for us. So we always feel that there's an essence of us as a company. We use music as a bit of a foundation, but primarily they're 2 very different modes that use very different feature sets of the TV and the Dolby processing to deliver what you can hear on a 937.
The one other thing that's really interesting about all of the products that we work with over the course of the time that we've worked together with the team at Philips TV, I think, is that working together to create this holistic offering, you get a much more cohesive experience. And I don't just mean cohesive from the acoustic performance point of view, I mean cohesive from the day-to-day, the interaction, the living with it, the whole fact that it looks the same, that it's been designed as a piece, that visually the materials, the surfaces are complementary to each other, the fact that it does all work off one remote control. It feels much more, I think, something that gives you a sense of pride of ownership than the potentially disparate solutions that you could choose to have if you went for a separate soundbar with a separate TV. As a day-to-day device to live with, it's not any easier, I think it's more elegant. Alongside that, we shouldn't also lose sight of the fact that you also get access to a particularly important TV technology from Philips TV, which is Ambilight. And Ambilight, I'll be honest with you, when it first started to we first started to interact with it, there were some potential skeptics within the team who were thinking, well, this potentially is just a bit of a gimmick. The reality is, it really works. It really works to immerse more, to engage more, to add more. And particularly in the latest generation of products, which have four-sided Ambilight, the fact that it works as a complement to the audio is phenomenal. I think the whole system becomes more immersive than ever when you combine three or four-sided Ambilight with the immersive audio as well. We've, if I'm honest with you, never had the time to actually do any kind of proper experimentation on it, but it'd be a very interesting exercise to do. Do you feel that having the immersive audio without the Ambilight on is preferable to having it with the Ambilight on? From our own point of view, when we're working, we always work with the Ambilight on because we actually feel that it creates something that we think the end consumer is going to actually want, but also we think it actually just makes the whole experience better. It actually does what it says on the tin in a positive way.